teenage love, Russian encroachment, and an unforgivable lie. We're talking all things all mankind. Next.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to AfterBuzz TV. Thank you so much for joining us here. We're talking all things for all mankind. Episode 8, Rupture. You guys, this was a heavy episode. Crazy heavy episode. We're talking Aleida's future over love. We're talking the Russians step it up a notch. And of course, Shane. You guys, I covered my eyes the entire time. Shane is the whole thing. It's the entire episode, okay? It's Shane. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about Shane because that was heavy. We also have our special segment, a hero's journey, and our news and gossip. Men be raging. Wow. My favorite, Tara. That's my favorite. I'm so glad that you do that here. But first, my name is Tatiana Marisa, and I'm so excited to be talking about the show. Let's introduce
me,
Tara Erickson.
Hey guys, it's me, Tara Erickson. Happy to be here. Tatiana's co-host here on the show.
So exciting. She's a star, you guys. I'm starstruck just sitting next to her. So exciting. So Tara, tell me what you thought about this episode. What are your overall thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that Karen brought a very good performance of craziness and sadness and probably what happens to her when you almost lose a son, or where she's almost at the point where she's lost a son. And yeah, her husband being on space the whole time and how to handle that. Yeah, I was hoping more would come out with Gordo and Danielle being back at the base. But I did like Margot and Aleida's storyline as well. I never say her name right. Aleida, right?
Yeah, Aleida.
Great.
Aleida.
That's it. It's not Aleida Battle Angel. It's Aleida.
Yeah, she's a gem. She's a gem.
I give it a 6.7 out of 10, I think, this episode.
Oh, we're rating it now?
I guess
Little
so.
did I know.
I threw that gem in there for you.
I mean, on the emotional feels,
it's way higher.
It's like off the charts.
Totally.
So I can't, you guys. I couldn't. Okay, so I really want to talk about Shane, but first I want to tackle these other ones. Okay, let's talk about Aleida. Mm-hmm. She is accepted into the Kennedy Math and Science program, which is so cool and it's so amazing because I think she's accepted in there early, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Way early.
Okay, so she's basically trained under Margot, who's a fantastic but tough teacher. Thanks, Von Braun. Right, only because of Von Braun. But Aleida is also a teenager, and she is hopelessly in love. Right?
Yeah, when she took that phone, I was like, I think I remember that feeling when I was 11.
Totally. First boyfriend, completely infatuated. And it's funny because when you're a teenager, way back then, I remember when you're a teenager, it's literally that whatever is in front of you is what matters most. You're not necessarily thinking into your future. Some teenagers do, that's great, but the majority of it is it's very rare. The majority of teenagers think right here, right what's going on. And so she's completely not giving this Kennedy Math and Science program the time that it needs.
I agree.
Yeah. So what would you say to her? Like, what would you say to somebody who, is hopelessly in love with their first love?
Honestly, I was trying to put myself in that position, and there are no words that you can use to tell a teenager to stop liking a boy. I mean, honestly,
it came out.
It came out. You cannot. I do not think that you can honestly play with words against emotions in regards to a preteen or a teenager. A teenager who's maybe really wise and older in their years. But I think Aleida is 15? Yeah. She's like around there, right? A little bit of a preteen. And I just, that was a tough moment because I would remember probably being there and if I was confronted with a really good thing, but a guy or was involved, I think you would want to choose to be near them because you just let all of your emotions take control.
And there's no way that he could go with her. And if she said no, then she's basically giving up on her entire future.
Exactly.
Which is Margot's point, and she's kind of being a little motherly because Aleida's mother is passed. And so, I think Margot has taken upon herself to be that female figure in her life to kind of say, look, you have the rest of your life to do this. Now, what if, I'm not saying that Aleida's love would last, necessarily, but, she's basically asking her to choose between love and her future.
Yeah, and who knows if it's even love? We still don't. But
That's what I'm saying. You don't know
love.
With teenage relationships at all.
Come on. It's probably not going to last.
You have the select few who are high school sweethearts that actually made it out the gate. But
did they follow their dreams at the same time? I feel like the possibility and percentage of that is very rare.
I believe it is.
And her dreams are, I think she would regret it. Her dreams are as close to her heart as like this guy would be, but she's not able to distribute those the same way and look at them the same.
It's a part of growing up.
It's tough, man.
It's hard.
It's so hard. I hope that Margot obviously would bring it up to her family and get involved, but that would cause tension between her and Margot is her her mentor.
Right.
So I don't really know. Honestly.
Well, save it for predictions.
Okay, got it.
What you think is going to happen?
Saving it.
Save it. Don't tell anybody. But I'm curious to see how this will play out. Honestly, because of the entirety of the show, I think she'll make the right decision, but it's going to be heartbreak. But I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Speaking about teenage love, we have tons of shows here at AfterBuzz on teenage love. Guys, can you tell us about that?
Teenage love shows, we cover them all. You guys need to make sure that you'll subscribe, like, and comment, and tell us how we're doing on iTunes, on YouTube. Guys, we're here for you. We're the ESPN of TV Talk. We come here to talk TV and movies and podcasts for you guys. We're here for you. We would love to hear your feedback so we know what more you want to hear from us, what less you want to hear from us, what should we be doing for you. We're here for you. We love you guys. Please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, do all those great things. And yeah, we'll be here for you every week.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the Russians. I really want to talk about the Russians because they're totally encroaching upon Jamestown. So they're really stepping it up a notch. And all of these paranoid instances that Ed and his group had are coming true. At first I thought he really was paranoid, but now they're completely spying on them. What did you think when Ed found that device? Now we think it's a surveillance camera. I don't think it's a surveillance camera.
You don't?
No. I think it's something else. Ed was doing the same thing, basically, hiding a camera, but who was much farther away. They actually went into his base and put something there.
Yeah.
So what would you do? You're there alone. I can only put myself in the position, right? You're there alone. You don't want to have a fight on the moon. You pull your space helmet off, it's done.
Yeah, you're done.
It's done.
You're all done. I feel like it is a way for them to listen in and hear what they've been up to. But Ed is a guy who can go flying off the handle. He's just that stern guy who's like, Mah! And so he's not the best person to be in this position. But I think from my point of view, knowing that if you went after them, it would only blow up in your face. You have no backup, Ed. You're there solo. This isn't going to work. You need to just lay low, take a step back. You're already putting surveillance on them, so you're at least getting the information. You now found their device, which he did end up destroying, which I don't think was a great idea because that just sets it off that now they know that we know, and I know that you know that we know.
They've had to have known anyway. But it even shows they're listening into their radio and video because they sent Ed a message and said, "Oh, we're sorry for the loss of your son," or "We're sorry for your loss," or something like that.
But I don't know if that was because the press release got out that we never figured out, or if it was because they've been listening in on somewhere that is not the base, because he didn't know yet. So
true.
it wouldn't have been talked about at that base with Ed, because Ed wasn't aware.
Well, I have no doubt that it's far beyond the moon.
I agree.
That the Russians are involved in
Totally.
like spying and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So either
At NASA.
Right, at NASA. So either there's a mole in NASA,
Yeah.
and I don't think they were actually sending their sympathies.
No.
Either. It was a complete dig. Perhaps, I mean, you could even go so far to say that they knew that Ed didn't know about his son. So they sent that in hopes that it would send him off the rocker.
Yeah, it would ruin him.
Yeah.
Which I think most certainly it will.
So that's a horrible on media then. Mm-hmm. The Russians are watching their media and they know every step, everything that they're doing. So it's not, I mean, you really don't even need a surveillance video. You just watch the American news and you know what's going on.
And you know exactly what's going on, which is what leads me to maybe think that it could have been a possible early weird press release that the mole has it on good authority. I don't know how he showed up at the hospital with Karen, and somehow it had already gotten out that the son was in the hospital. None of them knew how the press found out. Tracy got rid of him.
Tracy.
Hey, girl. But yeah, it only leads me to assume that there is some sort of mole who is leaking information, and maybe that press guy would leak information to the Russians if they're around.
So then what are there are no barriers. Like, what are the boundaries here? I mean, this is going to push everything, I feel like, into a war on the moon kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. I think the only boundaries are that both countries are agreeing that we don't want to start a war, but both of them need to know exactly what each other is doing at all times.
You don't think the Russians want to start a war?
I think that they want to get close, and they would have to be uberly prepared to really, really win it if they wanted to have a fight on the moon. I think the instigation is there that leads us to believe, like, oh, they want a fight. I'm just not sure that they would be prepared enough to really bring it. Do they really want that sort of blood splash on their name on the moon? I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is just going based off of the materials that we've seen on the moon. They seem more advanced than the U.S. materials. So, and their resources, it seems a little bit more advanced. So, I think that they would have the manpower.
They have a one-up.
I think they totally have a one-up over the U.S., especially because it's like, oh, we're going to send somebody up to Jamestown in 2 weeks. Oh, now it's 2 weeks later. Now it's 2 weeks later. Now it's 2 weeks later. And, the astronauts up there are going nuts. And look at Gordo, So they know that. I believe that they have like a whole crew of people over there. I think the situation is completely different.
Yeah, you might have convinced me in regards to they do have more resources. I think sometimes when I watch the show, I forget that it's sci-fi, and I've been covering this show. I don't really forget where I'm like, I know these aren't real, but also I still associate NASA and the U.S. with the most powerful of the space. But in this show, we are not, as you so kindly reminded me,
right.
Tatiana. I think you're right. So maybe they would be willing to go to war, and they would definitely be able to win it because they're a little more advanced.
Crazy times.
What?
Crazy times. Well, I can't wait to see how that plays out. Now, of course, the meat of this episode was Shane. Okay? Shane's brain dead, y'all.
Shoot.
He is brain dead.
Sad.
And it's, I don't know. Yeah. He's brain dead. So Karen is losing her mind. She's going through this alone. She lies to Ed. This man's on the moon by himself and doesn't know what happened to his son. That's terrible. Like, when they were talking about whether or not they should tell him, I understand the ramifications of a person psychologically being on the moon and going through, trying to process your emotions with all of this. I get it. It would be detrimental. I see that. But at the same time, it's his son. It's his son, bottom line. It's his son. And for his wife to make the call, it didn't sit right. It didn't sit right.
You didn't like that. You didn't agree.
No, I didn't agree. I understand why they made the decision that they made, but I completely disagree.
Do you think they all should have met and done a vote? How do you think it?
I mean, they're right to have gone with Karen's choice because she is his wife. But at the same time, Gordo and Danielle were up there with him that long. Not saying they know him better than his wife, but they definitely have seen a different part of him because there's a lot he doesn't share with his wife.
I agree.
So, you know, I think they should have made the call because they know what it's like to be in space, especially Gordo, because he lost his freaking mind. So, you know, they should have told him, and now it's too late. He can't send a message to his son. He couldn't be there anyway, but, you know, it's just depressing.
It is. The one thing that I think about is that even if he had sent a message or tried to speak to him, his son is brain dead. Okay. But there are some people, like maybe they can still hear or register information. So maybe just him sending out vibes to his son in regards to before the plug is pulled, if they're going to do that.
Which they are.
Which you kind of, it's leading to that, that maybe he would have felt better about it. But the only thing that was on my mind in regards to not telling him was that if they do tell him, is he going to be able to fly himself back solo? Now, on 25, I believe that there's only a limited amount of people, and now the carrier, I think, can only take Ed back, which means now he has to get off of there and land himself, I assume, unless they're bringing an extra person. That I don't think I know totally. But in my brain, I was like, oh, how is he going to land back safely? I wasn't really concerned about him being there by himself and dealing with it. I was more worried about him getting back safely. I don't know. That's a tough position to be in. I think everybody would want to know. I do agree that you would be like, it's my family, it's my business. I can choose how I want to deal with it, whether I'm on land or on the moon. You sent me here. I have a privilege to that information. But it really was all on Karen because she could have easily told him, and that's really hard. You don't want to go behind a husband's wife and end up telling him.
Absolutely.
But the Russians did just that. But it's the Russians.
But that sucks because it's how it was set up is horrible because the Russians. So he talked with Karen. Karen lied to him about the whole basketball game. While her son is literally in the hospital. He's like, cool, everything's cool. Gets the message from the Russians. Already knows, found this device in their site. Gets the message from the Russians, is pissed off because he thinks, oh, now they're messing with me psychologically because my wife just told me that my son was okay. So then he goes down, and that's what makes him destroy that device, which is going to cause the Russians to counteract. And that's what sucks because the whole thing could have been avoided if the truth was just told.
I agree.
And that's what's horrible. And at the end of the day, Ed, he was in the Navy, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah.
So at the end of the day, he's a Navy guy first and foremost. How he handles things, he's like, I don't care if I'm alone. I know the protocol. I know what I'm supposed to do. I was trained in this. I've been through worse. I can do it. At the end of the day, he's not thinking, oh, I shouldn't do anything because I still want to get home and see my family. He's a Navy guy first and foremost. And so that is completely displayed. And I think that this is going to push him over the edge. And he's going to be like, the rogue Navy man on the moon.
Yeah, I agree because now basically what this says is that everybody who is supporting me in this job, I am now a chief, right? That they don't trust me with my own emotions, which is just as bad as Gordo, honestly. It's now that everyone behind him is saying we couldn't trust you to be there alone and deal with this information when really Ed has literally made himself a concrete wall that could withstand so many earthquakes to get to the place that he's at and to not allow him this information to work through it on his own. I do agree. It's going to push him over the the old threshold.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because you see Ed and Karen, their lives are kind of paralleled right now. Because they're going through the same thing, not in the fact that, well, he's alone, right? He's alone on the moon, and now he's dealing with this, and he had to be strong, and he had to make tough decisions. And Karen is doing the same thing on Earth. She's alone in this whole Shane ordeal, and she found it out by herself. She had to go to the hospital by herself. She had to discipline Shane by herself. So she's been doing all this and making the calls by herself, as well as taking care of other people, because she's been taking care of Tracy's kids and Tracy. So, their lives are so similar, and how they're handling things is extremely similar. I see why they're married, but I also see why they have no communication, is because they're both, like you said, brick walls, with their emotions. They don't handle reality. I mean, she just found out her son was brain dead, and then she went home and started planning the funeral, hours after it. And Tracy was crying. She's like, if you're crying, I need you to do it somewhere else. I was like, wow. She needs Molly's husband.
I know.
She needs Molly's husband.
I agree. I was sad that we didn't see him yet. I do believe we discussed that last week, that we hope that he would pop up. He still hasn't. I know that he'll come back at least before the end. But I agree with you. I think that he would be the one to handle her side of sensitivity, which actually no one has, not even her husband. It's only him, which is weird, and which is why she kept her distance for a long time. And then she finally caved when she went to meet him at his apartment and got all of this off of her chest, and he understood. And I'm not sure what kind of unraveling would happen if she actually met with him, though. It may be a sort of unraveling she doesn't come back from.
But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the last interaction that she had with Shane was slapping him. And so hard. that is hard. That's the digger. That's the kicker. Yeah. I can't even imagine. Like, when I stopped watching the episode, I was a wreck.
It's beat, man. It'll beat you down.
Yeah. Horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, that's how it'll make you feel horrible.
I'm sticking to it. So after this heaviness, I really think we need a moment of positivity. So let's go into our special segment, A Hero's Journey, where I really want to talk about the hero of this episode. And I feel like Tracy hasn't been nominated, so to speak, to be the hero as of yet. So despite whatever animosity that was there between her and Karen, because there was kind of a tiff, Karen had a problem with Tracy, becoming an astronaut, leaving her kids, and, being modern. I feel like whatever that was there, it was all put to the side. All of those feelings were put to the side. It wasn't even a question whether or not they needed to talk about it or clear the air. Tracy was there. And not only was she just there that day, she put everything on hold. Her training to go up to the moon, she put everything on hold so she could be there with Karen, because she understands that Karen is alone, like has nobody there. So Tracy is the amazing hero, because heroes, they don't always have to swoop in and save the day. Sometimes just a presence and a shoulder to cry on is all that you need to keep your head above drowning. And that is what Tracy was. So
I agree.
I appreciate Tracy.
She's a sweet hero.
She is. In contrast, back to the comedic timing of Tara Erickson with Men Be Raging.
Guys, all right, so there is one. I'm going to let our producer pull it up. He gave it like 4 out of 5 stars. Great. It's entitled Revisionist History Dull, with a period. Illegal aliens, period. Rage-filled police, period. Drunken, testosterone-filled astronauts, period. Women ignored, period. Leave political views out of it, and it could have been the start of a great series. ... Guys, I don't know. Just the top of that, I'm like, is he drunk? Women are most definitely not ignored in this show. They're paid attention to almost too much by people who would be his friends. That's what they would say. There's too many women in here and it's too many cultures. I don't know how to handle it. Okay, next though, I'm gonna brighten your days here, okay? Next up is someone who gave it a 10 or 8 out of 10. We'll go to that real quick. And I do agree with this. That I don't get the extreme reaction to this series. I truly enjoyed it. Can't wait to watch the last 2 episodes. I'm there with you. The names have done a fine job since the sets look stunning. Acting is fine. I like the word fine to go with the acting. I think that it is fine, like a fine wine. And the story unfolds, pulling the viewer more and more into the fictional history. I agree. You kind of have to get into this show past, I think, 3 episodes, which everybody has said. And then you'll really start to enjoy it. I don't know why there are people still freaking out about this show still. A nice reminder that it is a sci-fi. This is not based on original history. This is a show that was written by writers. So just remember that. They're not trying to change history. They're just trying to highlight a few things. I'll read through this very quickly. Can you expand that for me, Ryan, to make it bigger? The show is the best sci-fi show to be made in a long time. It tells the story of what could have been. It gives viewers a glimpse into the space race. How NASA inspired not just what America, but for all of humanity. There are those who say the show isn't any good. Well, to them, I say they are dead wrong. I heard people say that it's too political, gender biased, or racially biased. That's what everyone's raging about. Well, I'm here to tell you that's wrong. Yes, it does address those issues, but only because that was happening in the 60s and 70s, which it very much was. But more importantly, it tells a story of how race for space exploration and how our advancement in space could have benefited not only Americans, but all of mankind, henceforth why it's titled For All Mankind. I agree with him or her 110%. So just everybody, just tuck in your rage. Put it away for now. Let's watch the rest and then decide how we feel later. That's it, guys, for now. We'll see you next week on Men Be Raging!
I like it.
Cool.
It's good.
We did it.
I really like that last review.
Me too.
That was my favorite.
I agree with that.
Yeah, me too. I'm 100% on board. So, with that said, getting into predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Let's see what you got. What you got for me?
Okay, so I do still think that Danielle and Gordon are going to end up in a scene next episode. I need this to happen, that there's a blow up and he's like, Danielle did it. She broke her arm for me. I know that might be way off base with everything that's happened so far. I do think Ed is going to have a really big struggle. I am kind of envisioning that the start of a slight war on the moon is going to lead us to the very end, and Ed would obviously be the instigator for it. And if it's not a war, it's something really bad politically that the president is now going to have to deal with in regards to the Russians, and it is all because Shane got in an accident. He didn't find out. Who knows how he would have responded even if he found out. Either way, his son is dead, which sucks. And he's going to lose his mind a little bit. And it's going to be really hard for us, which I think even in this storyline, in this episode, to be happy for the rest of the people who are prepping to go on Mission 24, to go to the moon. They added in a few moments in this episode of like, I'm really proud of you, sweetheart. You're finally going to be on the moon. I was like, this is a good side plot, but I can't feel for him right now. All of my other emotions are taken up by this other side story. So I am interested. I hope that they do swing it in a different direction so we can see more of the characters. That's what I hope, that we only got 2 episodes left, that they tie it up and get sort of not out of the Shane storyline. We'll get more back into Ed and how he might be destroyed by this. But I think hopefully getting into the other characters, their time has come.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I think this Shane storyline is going to be like the catalyst for a lot of things gone wrong. And I think you're right. I think it all has to do with Ed, with the steps that he's already taken in breaking that Russian spy gear, whatever it was. So I totally think that that's going to happen. And I wonder too about Karen. I really want to see Karen and Molly Cobb's husband. I think that that's who she needs right now. And so I think that he's going to come back into her life, and, you know, they will have a moment. And I think she's going to start leaning on him, and Ed's going to come home and their marriage is going to be broken up. Not that Karen is going to have an affair. I really don't think that's her character. However, I do see her pulling away from Ed, and Ed pulling away from her because of what's going on with Shane. Because how could you trust your wife again after she lied to you about your son being brain dead? Your only son. And they've been trying to have another baby as well. And they haven't been able to be successful, partially, in fact, because her husband has been on the moon for like 184 days. So, you know, there's a lot at play there between their relationship and what was once some kind of strong for them. I think they're now being strong separately and not together. So that's going to really hurt them. And I want to see Clay. I want to see what's going on with Danielle and Clay. And I hope that comes back. And, you know, we see her story played out. And I think that Gordo is going to crack. Like you said, you called it the last time we did the review. And I think now that he's seeing a psychologist, it's totally going to happen. But Gordo and Tracy, again, their relationship, which once was kind of strong, I guess, that trust was broken, and she obviously has not recovered from it. And so she's continuing to question him when he's actually going through some really serious shiznit. Of course, she doesn't have the whole picture, but you know, I don't see their relationship lasting either. So, you know.
Which puts Tracy and Karen on the exact same path, because neither of them are talking to their actual partners. So now we have them moving along together through what may be the outcome for both of them the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So their friendship will really blossom out of a horrible circumstance.
They might have to share an apartment together with those kids.
I mean, with
Season
Tracy's,
2, man.
let's be all with Tracy's kids.
Oh, man.
Guys.
Yeah, it would just be all of Tracy's kids, not their kids. Okay.
All I know is Karen's going to lose her shiznit. She's going down. She's always been so calm and collected, and it is time for her to just, let it out. Nobody's going to judge you. Just be mad, sad, rage. Just rage.
Yes.
Okay?
Like the
these
men on
people
the
on the
internet.
review. Yes. Karen
here.
be raging. Hashtag Karen be raging. It's happening.
We'll get there.
Man, before we leave this super heavy episode, please tell us where we can find you, Tara.
Guys, I am Tara Erickson. You can find me all over the internet, but especially look me up on YouTube. It's TARAERICKSON. Please look me up on IMDb. My movie, The Twisted Nanny, is on Lifetime. You can watch that too. Check that out. And yeah, that's it for me.
And of course, I'm Tatiana Marisa. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.